Hi, good day, Jabari here, and today we're going to set up Exchange 2007 on Virtual Machine Server 2008. Let's get started. Now there are a few things you're going to need, of course. One of those things is the Microsoft Exchange, whichever version you have, you're going to need or you would like to install, you're going to need to get that. We have Exchange 2007, and you're also going to need Outlook. Now, your computers need to be networked, and there's certain things that you have to remember across this tutorial. Now, if you've been following my series, I've been telling you while we've been installing Active Directory and everything else, is that IP version 6 has been turned off throughout all of this. So during the installation of Active Directory, running DC Promo, during DNS and DHCP, what I've done is made sure that my IP version 6 was turned off before all of that. Now, before we get into anything in the server, you're going to need to reactivate your IP version 6 so that you'll get clean installations with no problems. Alright, so let's get started. So the first thing you're going to want to do is go to Server Manager and select Features, and you're going to go to Add Roles. And when you're here, you're going to search for a role by the name of PowerShell. This is the first step, or one of the first steps in installing Exchange. You install, so once we install this, we're not going to have any problems later down. Now, I must remind you, please ensure that your version 6 is turned on before you start anything with the server. Make sure that DHCP is turned off on your server, it shouldn't be on in the first place, and that your server has a static IP. And once that's completed, you select Close, and the next step is we're going to go back to Roles, and we're going to go to Add Roles, and we're going to select Next, and we're going to look for Web Server. We're going to select that, it's the second to last option. We select Next, and we're going to install Web Server. Now there are a few things you're going to have to check off. In security, you're going to have basic Windows and Digest authentication turned on. You're also going to turn on dynamic content compression, and ISS 6 management compatibility must be turned on. We select Next and Install. Now you need to remember to check off everything on that list because it's very important that all those services have been selected. And once this is completed, you're going to select Close, and we're going to need to import a transient folder for the purposes of VirtualBox only. We're going to close this, and we're going to go to Devices, and we're going to select Shared Folder Settings. Once you select that and you select OK, you're going to search for where you have your Exchange folder saved. You're going to go to where you have your Exchange folder. I have mine on a drive separate. This is only in VirtualBox. If you had yours on the desktop, you would have just opened it from your desktop. But there's my Exchange, and we're going to run the setup. You're going to select Setup, and you're going to see this window come up. Now you notice steps 1, 2, 3 have been completed. We just installed PowerShell, and we just completed step 4, which is installing the web server. So the next thing we're going to do before we run step 5 is do the Windows update for the Exchange server. So I'm going to go to my installer folder there, and I'm going to open my Microsoft update. So this basically is going to check to make sure everything is okay. We're going to select OK here. And it's going to install whatever updates I've been missing. It's going to install the updates that I've been missing straight to VirtualBox. Upon completion, it's going to ask you to restart. I'll see you as it restarts. And we're back. Our next step is to go back into Start My Computer, and we are going to look for the Exchange folder that we just had open. So Start My Computer. Like I said before, my Exchange is saved on my drive, so I'm going to be accessing it on my drive. And we're going to run the setup again. Next thing we have to do now is go on to step 5. This is a very important step. Now you're going to need a lot of patience to install this Exchange server because a lot of this stuff takes a lot of time, but you need to be patient. So we're just going to check to ensure that our IP version 6 is in fact turned back on. Properties there. We're going to make sure that our IP version 6 is checked off before we move on to step 5. You need to make sure this is on, otherwise your server would not be installed correctly. So we go back to our setup. And we select step 5. Now this is very important. You can take your time and read through these things, but this is the Exchange server ready to be installed. So what we're going to do is select next. Of course we have to accept the terms. Select next. And of course error reporting is your choice. I'm going to leave it off or no for the time being. Select next. As a matter of fact, you know what, I think I'm going to turn it back on. So yes, we're going to leave it on, or we're going to select yes, move on to next, select next again, and you can name the organization anything you want there. We select next again, and it's going to begin going through the readiness checks. Now this is one of the most important parts in installing Exchange. You need to remember, if anything is done incorrectly, you're going to be prompted at this window first in order to let you know that there's an error. Now, I must advise that when you're installing Exchange, you should back up your server just in case there's an error. If you're doing this for the first time, you should really back up your server, because if there's an error, you're not going to be able to correct it. You're going to have to delete all the information on the server or even remove the server from its place. So it's always advisable to back up before you begin installing Exchange. Now once these readiness checks have been completed, I'll see you all in a bit. Now this is the other window after the readiness checks. These checks are just as important as the other checks. It is at this window where you realize whether you have an error or not. A lot of people are going to run into a lot of errors they're going to have at this stage, especially if your DHCP is not working correctly, your DHCP and your DNS. So we're just going to sit through these tiny windows and see how things go. Most common error found at this point in time is at the hub transport role. That is the role which gives a lot of people problems. That has to do with your DHCP not being able to communicate properly with the server. So we're going to wait and see if our DHCP hub transport role has been installed properly. Now during the installation or the check of your hub transport role, you're going to see a few command-like prompt screens appear. Nothing to be nervous about. They're just going to flash once or twice. That means that everything is going according to plan. Upon completion, you select finish. You're going to select OK. We're going to select OK, and we're going to see your server is going to add snap in. And as simple as that, you've set up your Exchange server. Now the next step is to install or to ensure that your users are on your server network so that you'll be able to send messages through the Exchange server. So what we're going to do is you're going to open your Exchange Server Manager console, which you will see in the start menu. You're going to go to Mailbox and you're going to select New Mailbox. You're going to follow the instructions, User Mailbox. Select Next. And you're going to create a new user, or you can add existing users that are already on the network. But for the sake of the tutorial, we're going to select a new user. Next. And you're going to type in the credentials of the user. And then select a password for the user if you see it fit. Of course, we're going to use the same password we've used all across the tutorial, P@SSW0RD. Select Next, and you're going to select Browse in order to add the mailbox database. Select OK, Default, and select OK, and you're going to select Next and Next again, and it's going to create the user and the mailbox for the user. And once that's completed, you have successfully set up Exchange and added a user so that you can begin sending mail using your Exchange server. So, thanks for watching. Do hope I'll see you guys soon.